Hey Flockers, this is Sarah.
And this is Jenny, and you're listening to Naked with Socks, where we
Assess the mess with finesse. So welcome back, and if you are joining us again, thank you. We definitely appreciate every time someone has listened. So
all the love.
Thank you. All the love. Thank you. We appreciate it. If you are tuning in for the first time, we do suggest going back and listening to episode 1, learning about what we're coming here for and doing, and then go and listen to the second episode, which is all about Jenny.
So let's get to it. The purpose of today's podcast is all about Sarah.
Sarah.
Oh, you sent me that song. It was so fucking weird.
That's like the only popular Sarah song.
Okay.
It's like by Starship or whatever. It's like an 80s song. And when I Googled or when I searched on Spotify my name, that was the song that came up. And they don't spell it like my name with an H, but I've heard it in movies. So yeah,
It was a weird song, but I'll link it.
We'll link it.
To it. Sarah, what are we going to talk about today? What is your takeaway from today's episode?
My goal today with everyone that's listening is to leave this episode feeling accepting of who you are right now and who you
Cheers.
Today's Flocktail is thebomb.com, brought to us by Jenny. And yeah, tell us all about it.
This is the Sassy Sara.
Sassy Sara, yeah.
It's extremely strong. It's a little salty. And it's warm. Just makes your heart happy.
And you said zesty.
Yeah, like it has a little zest. So
like
we did a little twist to it. Yeah, we did a little citrus, the brightness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just to reflect Sarah and her personality. And we wanted to do something different. We used, of course, St. Augustine Vodka, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, from the distillery in St. Augustine, which is like legit my favorite vodka.
It's so good. And I'm not just saying that because
it's award winning. It's won awards. So yeah, it's good.
I did a little bit of dry vermouth, but I just put it in the glass and like swished it around and dumped it out.
Okay.
Because I added half an ounce of olive juice.
Oh,
or
okay.
like the brine from the olives to give it that little saltiness.
Yeah.
Stirred, not shaken.
Stirred, not shaken, yes.
Then, of course, the fresh lemon twist. Went around the glass and over the top and into the drink.
It's perfect.
Okay, let's jump right into the interview question.
Let's do it.
Sarah, what is one song that you best relate yourself or your life to?
I have to agree with you that this was really such a hard question. I had 3 or 4 where I was like, oh, these are the ones. But I put it to one song, and it's called Don't Kill My Vibe by Sigrid. And I definitely suggest everyone taking a moment and listening to it, because this song for me, it came in a time in my life where I didn't really necessarily need it, but then when I did need it, it was like I would sit in my car and cry singing this song. It's like an anthem of someone, any no matter if it's to someone or it's just your life in general, it's an anthem of sticking up for yourself. So it's just like a fuck you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is who I am, and you're not going to kill my fucking vibe.
I feel like I can totally resonate with that. Sarah, are you comfortable?
I'm comfortable, and I'm just going to dive in like you did.
Yeah, okay. Let's go for it.
Here we go. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, and as I grew into a young child, we moved quite a lot. So I talked to my mom last week, and she told me we moved from Atlanta, then we moved to Louisiana, then we moved to North Carolina, and then eventually we moved to Florida when I was 6 years old. Okay. So we eventually moved to Daytona Beach, which is where I call home. And I grew up there.
Which is so badass.
Yeah. So NASCAR, all that stuff, bike
Daytona
week.
girl.
Yeah. Reason we moved so much was my dad was and is a Christian evangelical pastor. We started a home church at my house. So we had like 10 people.
Oh,
yes.
I remember the first time you told me you were a pastor's daughter, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
Is this? Fun
So
facts. Okay.
Yeah, so we started, we called it home church, and then eventually we got so many people that we couldn't keep everyone
in your kitchen anymore.
We couldn't have like everyone just whatever. So they're in a brick and mortar now, and it's been, that church has existed for like 20 years.
So a really big religious influence.
Yes, the reason I do tell you guys all of that, like she just said, is because church was our life, was my life.
Literally in your living room life.
Yeah, like I honestly don't know anything else. It was all I knew. So growing up as a child, life was church. So when we did initially move to Florida, I was homeschooled in kindergarten. My mom homeschooled me.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and my sister was homeschooled as well. So she's 6 years older than me. So
just you and your sister?
Just me and my sister, yes. So I was the baby. And when we moved to Daytona, my mom got a job teaching second grade at a small private Christian school because my mom has a degree in education. So I followed with her. My sister and I both went to school at this small private Christian school. So I think partly one of the reasons my mom took those jobs is that she wanted us to be able to go as well. My dad eventually also got a teaching job at the same school. So he also has a degree in science, so he can teach.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we were all together. We were all together in this at the same school.
And at home and then church.
Yes. So
that's a lot of family time.
And that was my life. I went to outside of church. Then I went to a small private Christian school. And my childhood, I would say, was interesting, but yet at the same time, it was very simple. I played outside, had my friends, my neighbors that I hung out with, a great loving home I grew up in. But I do remember being young and having like anxiety and panic attacks when I was younger.
Panic attacks, explain that.
Okay, so I don't know if you've listened to the first episode, but if you haven't, go back and listen to it. I kind of explain the whole thing about the devil will hear me. Mm-hmm. Yes. It had to do around the fact of like hell and the idea of eternity in general. It overwhelmed me as a child.
That's terrifying.
So I remember that would bring such fear into my mind as a child. And it was like kind of like an impending doom feeling as a child that I had. And I remember I would be in the tub at night asking Jesus into my heart every night because I was scared to go to hell.
Okay, how old are you?
6, 7.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I would say
I normally say, oh my God, and I just said, oh my gosh.
I think it wasn't necessarily my parents were saying to me, oh, you're going to hell, but it was, again, like the environment and the culture that I was around and the things I was watching. I remember watching videos of people that die and go to hell and things like that. So I just remember being so young and seeing that, and it just absolutely terrified me. I will say that as I got older, it kind of subsided.
I would think that because you're already dealing with so much judgment and pressure as far as grades and friends and all that, and then to have the additional pressure of God and judgment, like that's a lot.
It went away for sure. That feeling did. And I think it was just the fact that like that whole thought process for a young child is a lot to
Was that something that you talked to your parents about? Were you able to be open with them about it, or was that something you kind of dealt with?
I really don't remember. I don't remember, honestly. I just remember feeling those things and feeling that way and getting scared and like just all of a sudden the panic attacks being like where I felt like I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dying. like my heart racing. I couldn't like get control of myself. Like I was just like having a panic attack. Like, I don't know if you've ever had one, but it's just one of the most terrifying things because you need something to ground you back to reality. And as a young child, it was just something I had to like process.
Yeah.
So when I was 10 years old, my mom and I transferred over to another private Christian school, and it was bigger than the one that we were attending. And I attended school there from 5th grade until my senior year. So I stayed at the same school all the way until my senior year.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. So 2 buildings. Elementary was in one building, and then you crossed the street and you went to middle school and high school. I was a huge dork. I loved to read. I, was just go with the flow, and
Complete opposite.
I didn't need to be entertained. I was really good at entertaining myself. When I was in 5th grade, I joined the band, and I stayed in until my senior year. So I was in marching band, concert band, tour band. I did all the bands.
You're just like a hot band geek.
Yeah, I was. Oh my God. Can I tell you how many times I've heard this one time at band camp?
Yeah.
Yeah. And at first I didn't get it because obviously
you didn't watch.
I'd never seen American Pie.
Stifler's mom was not a thing. Okay.
So I remember.
I grew up with that bitch.
Yeah. I was like, I fucking don't know what this means, but okay. And then I
laughed it off? Yeah.
Eventually I figured it out, and I was like, okay, this is fucking.
That was not a funny joke.
I feel like I could get involved into almost everything. So I did choir, I did theater.
Which, by the way, you have an amazing voice. Sometimes she does guest appearance at V's Pizza and gets
Just
on
randomly
stage and sings. So I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's my best friend.
Yeah, as you can see, I was a very driven girl.
You had a lot of shit going on.
I did, all the time. And as I got older, I would say around my 10th grade year, I developed this perfectionist mentality. And it bled into like every area of my life. I didn't date anyone in high school.
I was just going to ask you that.
Didn't date.
Did you date?
I really wasn't allowed, but I didn't date. There was no one in my high school I dated. Because of the strong, beliefs I was being taught in the culture, the Christian culture I was surrounded by, AKA purity culture, which is a TAWE, by the way.
Oh,
That's a whole episode. Basically, purity culture, if you're not sure what it is a teaching where you teach young girls, primarily young girls, that sexuality outside of marriage is a sin. And I mean, for guys too. And anything, any sexual act outside of marriage, you have to abstain from. You have to wait until you get married to have sex. And the big thing growing up in that culture when it first became such a big thing was girls' dads would give them a purity ring. So they would wear that ring on their ring finger.
Oh, that's so creepy. I'm so
sorry. Never happened to me. That never happened. Like, yeah, no.
Freaking so weird as shit.
That's the kind of culture I was growing up in.
Okay. Kissing? Is that a marriage thing?
I don't know. Well, it depends. It depends on what kind of Christian group you're talking to.
Fondling outside of the clothes?
I mean,
dry humping.
I don't know. I don't know.
Masturbating.
Because, well, I think that was definitely something that you were taught not to do. They didn't teach you. It wasn't something that taught you how to respect your body or like to get to know your body. Like anything sexually was just you.
So you were taught it was bad.
Yes, it was touching yourself was bad, all those things. So you just had to wait till you got married. And whoever God had for you is what
was just gonna deal with it.
You were going to magically get married and know exactly what to do in the bedroom.
Right. No, this is good. This is
good
information.
No. So,
I didn't know any of this stuff.
Yes, so that's purity culture. So that's what I grew up in. And the thing that I really have the problem with is that it puts a lot of pressure on young girls, right? Because we were told you're going to make, you know, Johnny over here. We were just going to use Johnny.
Johnny. We always talk about
You're going to
Johnny.
make Johnny over here stumble if you have your boobs. If there's any type of way that we're seeing your boobs.
You're responsible for not only you, but also worrying about how a man feels.
Yes,
if you're going to make someone else fuck up.
You're responsible for how... So it's not teaching boys to control themselves. It's not teaching self-control at all.
So again, the women are...
So you feel a lot of
You're
pressure
misled,
to cover yourself up, to keep your brother in Christ from stumbling, all these things. So it's just a very problematic thing for me. So being the perfectionist that I am, I went 1000% headfirst into all of this. When I was 16, I developed an eating disorder. It was a type of like bulimia and disordered eating, which they're both two different things. But
And that's all part of a mental thing. That's all part of anxiety. That's all part of that stress of not only are, like what you were saying earlier, you're responsible for your body, you're responsible for how apparently a man feels about your body, you're responsible for God approving of your body for you to get into some heaven. Like, that's a lot of pressure.
For young people, yes, that are developing and you're trying to figure out who you are.
Here, you're trying to feel good, you're growing, you're getting boobs, you're having all these hormones, and you have to suppress that.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot. But honestly, like, Jenny, I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
I didn't know any different.
That's how you raise. I didn't know any different either.
Like you were saying, like, this is all I knew. And in my head, this was how I had to live my life. But I will say the biggest problem for me was the perfectionist mentality that I had because, like I said, it bled into other areas of my life. So I developed disordered eating and eating disorder. I will say, though, I wasn't afraid to stand up for myself. I would at times definitely stand up for myself. I wasn't like a doormat.
But you definitely were putting your energy in all of your relationships and everything else and not into yourself.
Yeah, I didn't really I remember wanting to be really good at everything. I wanted to make everyone happy. I wanted to make everyone like me. I wanted to just be this perfect person. And as a teenager, when you have that mentality, it's going to come out in some way or another.
It's not healthy, yeah.
3 besties of mine, they did pull me aside because they did notice the behavior that was going on. And they're smart girls. And they sat me down and were like, hey, like, we're worried about you. You're not right. Like, you're off. Something's not right. And when they did that, it really meant a lot to me. And it did help. It did 100% help. And I tried to change my life after that. When they took the time to do that for me, I did my
Because in high school, some girls aren't going to do that.
They had my back, and I did my best to heal from that and move on. And I will say, I did kind of let it go a little bit. Like I did do better, but I would be lying if I told you to this day if I didn't struggle with it. You're always having that, like, in the back of your head, just coming in all the time.
100.
But you have to learn how to do it. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. So my senior year, I became Miss Warner, which was like the female, because there was a male and a female, president of like the whole student body.
It's like a prom king and queen?
No, like it's the whole year you're Miss Warner. You do certain things. Like I did the morning announcements. I crowned.
What's Miss Warner? Is that a human?
So I went to Warner is the name of the school.
Got it. Okay.
So you just had responsibilities. And so me and this guy
Some more responsibility
into
your life. Perfect.
I did my best at that time to be a great role model. And the holiday season of that year, I began dating a guy who I eventually married. I will tell you that this was my first serious relationship. I was 18. So summer after I graduated high school, I immediately got engaged. And yes, engaged. at 18.
I got proposed to at 18 and I said no.
Really?
Yeah, I was like,
Was
no,
it by
no fucking thing.
Was it by your high school sweetheart?
Yeah, by Tatum's dad.
Okay.
Yeah, and you, because growing up, you thought that was what
That
you were
was the
supposed
next
to do.
step. That was
your next step.
I did feel a lot of pressure to stay at home and go to college.
Looking back at it, I had experiences. I knew there was a bigger world out there. I feel like you didn't. I think at 18, if I would have been ready. Before you got engaged, did you want to go to college? What did you want to do?
I did.
What did you want to do?
I wanted to do communications. I wanted to be like a sports broadcaster or something. I got married 2 weeks after turning 20. So I was 19 and I turned 20 and then I got married 2 weeks later. I never quit college. And while I was in college, I was working at a daycare full time as an assistant. So I worked with babies. I worked with 2-year-old class. I did K3, which was my absolute favorite.
I love the babies.
So I did too. I loved the 2-year-olds. Like I got to potty train and I just loved it. When you're 20 years old, that stuff is just so easy.
I feel like your motherly instincts were really just kicking in too.
Yeah, it was like I just had no problem in that environment. So while I was going to school full time, I was also working full time. And I was also learning how to be a housewife or how to be a wife. And so
that shit's hard, by the way. That's a whole episode.
21-year-old girls, typically at that age, at 21, are partying at colleges, meeting and hooking up with guys. But my reality was very different from the normal. Mm-hmm. I had to grow up really quick. And I had to learn how to run a house, learning to be a wife in the culture I was surrounded by and growing up in, the pressures of that and the expectations that come from that as well. And then, being cut off financially from my parents, and I don't blame them. If you decide to get married, well, okay, you're going to learn how to be an adult. If you're going to do adult things, you got to learn how to be an adult.
And I never thought of the financial aspect of it.
Yeah. It's definitely hard not to be a bit angry at myself.
You have to grow up really, really fast.
Looking back, yes. I grew up really fast. And I really feel as if my 20s never really existed.
Yeah.
Because of the decisions that I made. Mm-hmm. It's definitely something that I had to cope with as you'll see, time went on. But yeah, I never got to experience the whole 20s of finding out who you are. I had to.
You did something harder.
I immediately skipped that whole where people typically go to college. They fuck around for a while, figure out what they're going to do with their lives. Figure out who they are. They get away from their parents. Whereas I skipped all of that. Yeah. And I went immediately into a role that typically people go into later in life.
Yeah.
And she opens a new drink just in time. I loved it. Okay.
I can't keep drinking vodka.
It's okay. Yes,
I'm intrigued.
She's got a
good
really
story.
I told you my life's kind of crazy.
I know.
It's funny though, because when I was like writing it out, I was like, this sounds kind of boring. But to see how intrigued you are.
I'm getting all the tea and I just had to crack a new drink. Keep going.
So I finished the first 2 years of college. You do all your pre-rec classes. So I did those and I enrolled I tried to get into the occupational therapy assistant program and I got accepted. And so I graduated from college in 2011. So it's a 2-year program and I graduated with an AS degree, which is an associate's in science, in occupational therapy. I passed my boards and got licensed in the state of Florida. And I applied for jobs, and I got a job working at a long-term and acute or short-term facility. It was like a nursing home. So they had people that lived there long-term and then people that either they just had surgery or they just got out of the hospital and they have to rehab. like after having a stroke or something.
Okay, got it.
So that's where I worked as a COTA, COTA is COTA, which stands for Certified Occupational Therapy Assistant. So if you're in that whole lingo, you've got an OT, you've got a COTA. My husband and I at the time decided to build a home in St. Augustine because we both love that area. And so we built a home there, and I also got pregnant in 2012. And I had my daughter in 2013.
Hi, Nora.
Once I had her, I tried to go back to working at the facility. Like I did my maternity leave, but I got such anxiety leaving her. I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't put her in a daycare at 3 months old. And I was nursing. I wasn't formula feeding her at all. So it was just something where I really wanted to be a stay-at-home mom with her.
That's a lot of hats to wear. And I feel like a lot of moms have to go through that when they go back to work because you're wearing the mom hat, new mom hat.
Yeah.
The main provider of the food. Yeah. Like that's a huge stressor in its own. Now, also you have a job and you're a wife. I mean, you're stretched so thin. Like,
it was during this time that I dealt with postpartum depression after I had Nora. Because also, like I was saying, the anxiety of leaving her was really intense. So I obviously decided to stay home. And the feelings that I dealt with was I had the anxiousness, lack of motivation to really do anything for myself. I would stress.
You lose yourself.
Yes, I would stress eat. I just didn't want to leave the house. That was brought a lot of anxiety to me. So I remember seeing a photo of myself and I hardly recognized who I was looking at. And that was when I was like, I have to change. And I had to do things to get better. And I did. I started to get outside more and go on walks and get out in the sun.
Vitamin D.
Vitamin A,
that
vitamin B, vitamin
shit
C, vitamin
hits your
D.
skin and just makes you want to act up.
But I did start to take supplements that helped my moods, and I walked with Nora in the stroller around the neighborhood in the sun. I would get her a little baby pool out and let her be in her little water, and I would just lay out in the sun. I was doing things to better myself. And when she was 14 months old, I got pregnant with Micah James.
Yay.
So I had my son.
How far apart are they?
They're just at 23 months.
Okay.
So I had her in 2013, and then I had him in 2015, but it was like a month from being 2 years apart. When I had him, that was when I decided that I really wanted to take my health serious. I was done looking done feeling a certain way. I was done not being happy with the way that I looked. I was like, all right. He turned 4 months old, and I was like, I'm going full force into losing weight and all of it.
So you took that upon yourself in the middle of, again, you're already in postpartum depression. We're just going to say it. I feel like anytime after you have a baby.
I'm sure I dealt with it just as I did. I'm sure I did just as hard with him, but I knew I wanted to feel better. So I was trying to do something physical, like health-wise, to make myself feel better. And so that's when I went into fitness. So I started with just doing cycling classes. And then when I got more comfortable in the gym, I started to strength train. They actually had a little women's area. So I would go in there and work out. And then as he got older, I think he was about a year old, I started to do the at-home beach body workouts. So I would do those, which I loved doing. And I actually got really involved in that. I loved it. I loved the culture of being around other people that were young moms and all of that. So
the community feel of it.
Yes.
Not being alone.
Yes. And that was something that I went headfirst into. And I loved it. And I would say 2016 was when I really started to feel good about myself, because I had lost all the, baby weight, and I liked how I looked. Which makes a difference. If you are happy with the way that you look, when you look at yourself in the mirror, it makes such a difference.
And you're an all or nothing person. That's one thing we have very much in common. You're like either all in or you're all out. And I think that that's something that it's cool you were able to recognize, hey, I need to change and turn it on.
I wanted to feel good about myself in every area because when I did feel good about myself, it just went into every area of my life.
Yeah, it bleeds into everything.
I got my certification in spin. So I became certified in spin cycling. And
which is kind of in the occupational therapy realm. Like you're very into health and fitness.
Yeah. So it was easy to me. It was because I had been in fitness for a while. So I got that certification, and I worked at one of the local gyms, and I taught like 3 times a week, early in the morning. In 2017, I got the bright idea to open my own fitness business. I wanted to open a business that focused on pre and postnatal fitness. So it was for moms. And I found a franchise or a company that I could buy a franchise.
Cool.
And we did stroller classes outside. So I didn't have like a brick and mortar, but it was you buy your location and you have all of these classes that they certify. So I got my group fitness certification, pre and postnatal fitness certifications, all of that through this company. And it thrived. It did really good. And I loved it. I built a little community in St. Augustine that I'm really proud of. And a lot of those people that came to my classes still are good friends today. That was a really good learning experience, kind of like your restaurant experience. That was a good experience for me to learn a lot about running a business and like shit doesn't get done unless you do it. I did have some help. Like I had a manager who helped me run, and her and I became good friends. So yeah, it was great. Okay. So at the end of 2018 is really when my life started to make some huge transitions. We were struggling financially, and by 2019, I had to figure out a way to make a steady income because it just had to happen. And it was nerve-wracking because I eventually had to shut down my fitness business, which was one of the hardest things I've done. I couldn't find a potential buyer, so I just had to shut it down. Being the perfectionist I am, I felt like I had failed. And I don't like to go into things and not be good at it. And it wasn't that I wasn't good at it. It was just all these like other factors going on in my life that was preventing it from being as successful as it could have been. So I had to let it go. And it was hard.
Exactly how I felt about the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like there's so much potential, and you want it to be this thing, and you put you put your heart and soul and tears and everything into it.
Yeah, there was a point where I had 25 moms that were, and then I had a core group of girls that followed me, like to the end. They were with me. They loved, like, I was a good fitness instructor. So that's why these people stayed with me.
You are. Let's just put that.
So I think what got to me more than anything was the business side of running a business. Yeah. It wasn't that I wasn't skilled enough. It was just so that
we can go into our flaws, but we can also go into our takeaways. And
well, I never fail. I only learn. Yes. So that's how I have to take that. 1, 2, 3. Yes. So I'm trying to keep myself
Been there, done that.
Been there, done that. Yes. While all of this was going on as well, I was having a bit of a fallout with my family. And that really took a toll on me emotionally, and I was not okay for a while. Like, not okay.
Especially because you grew up in such a close family. Like,
yes, probably one of the lowest points of my life, I will have to say. The reason being that I was making transitions in my own spiritual journey, and they were having a hard time understanding and accepting it. But this was a time in my life that I truly learned that I needed to be there for myself.
So
I had nothing else.
Well, and you had 2 kids. Mm-hmm. And at this point, are you going through a divorce?
Well, not yet.
Okay.
But I was going through business hardships and it was just a lot at one time. And the biggest thing was what was going on with this whole situation. Okay. I had to rely on my own determination to get through the loss of everything I once let define who I was. That was the biggest thing, was the loss of everything I once let define me. Mm-hmm. So we're into 2019. And I finally found a job working as a personal trainer. I got my certification as a personal trainer. I got a job as a trainer at a really popular gym in St. Augustine. And I have to be honest with you, that was probably some of the best 6 months of my life was working there. I got to just be social and train people, talk to people all day.
You didn't have the responsibility of owning a business.
No, it was like someone else was doing all that stuff for me.
Got it.
And I just got clients. I was just getting clients.
You were a really happy employee.
I was. So that brought so much joy in my life.
Yeah. And
even though I was going through, like, my home life was falling apart at this time. And
so you had to balance. It's like you had home life, work, mom.
Right. Like I knew
one is being successful and the other one's falling apart.
I had to, as a personal trainer, you have to grow your business. Mm-hmm. You have to grow your clientele. It doesn't happen overnight. And I was able to do it in such a quick amount of time. And I put my all into it. Like I do anything that I do. I'm 100%. I go all in and I do it. And I was the same way with my personal training. And so at the same time, going through a separation, I have to get on my soapbox for a second, because I really feel like divorce, it does. It's not even that I feel like, it does. Divorce gets such a bad rap. And, you know, everyone's like, I just don't want to be another statistic, right? And I get that. I get that to an extent. But honestly, I look at this time in my life as a point of where I was in such a state of self-actualization. I was coming into who I was. I was 30 years old. I hit 30 and I realized, like,
you finally felt like you.
I was me. I was getting to be me. And I realized, like, fuck, I am 30 years old and I want to live a life that brings me fulfillment, joy, and happiness. It was my current state of life was like a burning house, for like a metaphor. My life at home was like a burning house. And if I didn't do something and get us all out, we were all going to burn and crumble. That's what was going to happen.
That's a great fucking metaphor.
And I felt that I had to do something to fix this.
You went into survival mode.
I went into a fight mode. I went into
fight or flight. It's always
I went into a fight mode where I knew I had to do something. So yes, I got married super young. And as I grew and blossomed into the woman I was becoming, with this burning confidence and assurance that made me so determined, I knew my life had to make a 180. Mm-hmm. At the end of like 2019, I sparked up a relationship with my now boyfriend, and I instantly knew that he was the one.
Okay. Shout out to Pat. He's our number one hype fan.
Yes. He is our number one supporter.
He is also the reason we're friends.
He is.
So that's a whole episode.
Yes. As 2020 happened and progressed, which was such a fucking shit show of a year, we became serious, and I knew I knew he loved me because he stayed with me through one of the hardest times in my life.
Yeah.
2020 sucked. Back to corporate job. 2019.
Corporate job.
And when 2020 rolled around, we all went home to work, and I worked from home. And honestly, I'm just so grateful for my job. Everyone lost their jobs. Everyone was furloughed. Everyone, I felt so bad for people because my job was thriving. Like, I was working 10 to 12 hours a day on the computer. It was nuts. I work in the mortgage industry, and 2020 was insane. That was something I was definitely grateful for in that time, but it was still hard.
Oh, yeah.
Working that much at home, and then having the kids, trying to homeschool them while I'm trying to work 10 to 12 hours a day. And because everything was shut down, including the courts, my divorce wasn't finalized until mid-2020 because the courts were shut down, and then when they opened up, judges were backed up on paperwork. So it took a hot minute for my divorce to become finalized. So shout out to Patrick for being such a amazing person and loving me through such a hard time in my life.
Well, and we talk about energy and vibes and where you're at and what you're attracting. And I think that was just such a perfect time for both of you and where you were at in your life.
Yeah.
And you really needed each other and also thrived off each other.
Yeah. It's unconventional, but it worked for us and it worked out. But having his support and my best friend Rachel as well, she was my emotional support as well. Like, I couldn't have gotten through it. 2021, last year, was the year I felt like I was coming out of the fog of the struggle and was thriving at work, taking control of my health again, and bringing back that fire that I had. And I will say, where I'm at now in my life, I truly couldn't be happier. Today, where I'm at today, the present, I couldn't be happier. Things have manifested for me that I wanted for so long. Feeling confident in my body, being in a wonderful partnership and
a healthy relationship,
and also having like core friends again, because when I left St. Augustine, I lost everything. I lost my friends, my community. I had to start over. And I feel like today I've got my core group of people and I'm happy. I don't need a shit ton of people in my life. I'm thriving right now. And
like you've said before, we're not small talk people.
No.
And I think as you get older, you really start narrowing down your core people. And accountability is huge. Like the accountability, like Pat is your accountability person.
Yes.
You have your friends who are your accountability people, and that makes a huge difference.
It does. My relationship with my family has been restored to a place that makes me want to cry.
I'm almost motivated to like restore my relationship with my family.
My parents truly showed up for me when I was going through my separation and my divorce. Honestly, I couldn't have done it without them. Mm-hmm. Like, you say, I honestly couldn't have gone through that time in my life without the support and the love of my parents. And it really brought us to a place of love and acceptance. And that's all I've ever wanted. And I do my best to respect and love and accept. And nothing else matters to me. The takeaway for my life is to let go of expectations. Let go of perfectionism. Stop living your life for other people. You just have to stop. You have to stop living to be accepted by everyone. You have to be true to who you are. One of the big realizations I had when I was 30 was we only have this one life here on earth. And it's fucking short. It's really short. And the odds of being born in and of itself is insane. So why live a life on autopilot? Why live this one life hating yourself? Never taking a chance on yourself, standing up for yourself. I turned 30, like I said, and I truly realized I had to live a life of daring chance. And if I fail, so what? I fucking get up and fight like hell again and again and again. And if the world starts crumbling tomorrow, I get up and I fight and I do it again. Cheers.
So thank you so much for tuning in today and listening to Sarah's story. One of the questions or feedback that we got actually was people want to know how we met and what inspired us and how we decided to make a podcast. And that's what we're getting to. We're building up to that. So
next week we'll go into that.
Yeah, 100%.
And now we're going to kind of dive into how we met and we're going to get onto some fun topics.
Some good stuff. Like you're leaving today feeling inspired and motivated by Sarah's
And you know
story.
who we are.
Yeah, and you have our history. We're going to link everything in the bio and in the notes.
Mm-hmm. Once again, thank you guys for joining us. This is Naked with Socks, where we assess the mess with finesse. Cheers!